MudRFunR here. Today I'll be replacing the water pump on my 04.5 GMC Sierra with a Duramax. As much as I'd like to be able to tell you that this is an easy job, it really isn't. The one thing that you're definitely going to need is a 36mm 12-point socket. Has to be a 12-point, and this is to remove the harmonic balancer. Something that you normally don't have to do. So hopefully you've already got your new water pump by the time you get to this point. A little bit odd. Comes with some O-rings and gaskets and that. That's the water pump part, and that's the part that drives it. Runs off your timing gear. And this little part here is wedged between your block and your timing cover. And this is called the weep hole. And if your pump is leaking, chances are it will be coming from that weep hole right there. Normally I'd be disconnecting both batteries first before starting this, before starting any job. And just one more thing that I made sure was that my wheel was turned all the way to the left. And this way it'll give me a little more room to get in underneath the wheel well here. Or you can just take the tire off, it's up to you. Okay, so I'm just right by the passenger side wheel, and just above that, right there is the drain for the rad, if you're lucky to have one. Apparently some of the newer models don't have a drain plug anymore, you have to take the rad hose off. Okay, so I got the plug out, and just going to let it drain there. So just by loosening this off a little bit, I was able to get it to run a little faster, but if you do it too far, this may have it pouring all over the floor like I did. So this is kind of like a flow control right here, just by how far you open that cap. So yeah, you want a big pan. Or maybe two. So make sure you got lots of drain pans handy. So the next step would be to take the inner fender well out, and it's just held in with all these type of clips, still draining. So next I'm going to be removing the cover off of the radiator. So looking from the front down, you'll see a little clip underneath here. And same with over on this side, you can see it underneath those wires. There's another clip down there, and you'll have to get those out. And then the same thing for the other side. And then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts. So I got the 4 clips out of the bottom, and the 4 bolts off the top, 10mm. And I do believe this is your transmission control module right here, and it comes off when you get the 2 bolts off on this side. This shroud just pulls out. Okay, I'm gonna take this module right off, get it out of the way. I've already taken one of the wires off, and they're not too difficult to get off. There we go. Well, that's out of the way. And we're getting a little closer to the water pump every time. It's right down there. So with the help of Brian from Brian's Mobile One, I was able to make this job a little bit easier. He has a couple of quick tips that can save you some time. So I'm going to try the chisel trick. Just put it on there nice and straight like that, and put a score mark in it first. I'm going to have to move the camera out of the way. So this is what I was working with here. My long chisel with my vice grip so I don't hammer my hand, and put the chisel according to Brian's video, and I smacked it loose with this big hammer. No special tool required. Thing's a little bit heavy, and I recommend getting that off before taking the serpentine belt off. Just keep that from turning. And so if you want to get the belt off, on this one you need a 1/2 inch breaker bar or ratchet. And you should be able to pull it off the alternator and then get it off the rest of the way. Probably want this out of your way anyway. There is a LLY tool out there, which I didn't get. So you can either get the LLY tool, or you can take the starter off and prevent it from turning at the starter, or you can be like me and try Brian's cheater trick. So that's where I'm going now. So I'll meet you underneath the truck. So I'm going underneath the driver's side here. Here's your transmission filter. Probably want to bring a little screwdriver with you. And just back behind that filter is an inspection plate. I think it just pops off of there. And there she be. This is where the LLY tool would come in, but like I said, I'm not going to be using it. Okay, so at this point it's very important that you have both batteries disconnected. What I'm doing here is, I don't know if you can see, just up inside of there, there's that hole right there. So with that hole there, and there's this little stopper right there. So I'm pushing this in on a bit of an angle. I'm going to get it nice and tight here first. Move it over a little more. Okay, I'm pushing this right up inside that hole. And hopefully I can get it to stay there until I can get some tension on it right there. So it's in the hole and it's up against that little square peg right there where the flywheel and the torque converter are attached. So when you're doing this, the way that I'm doing it with a pry bar down there, you risk breaking your bell housing. So I've heard that it has been done, and again, take my advice at your own risk. So I'm gonna get a big bar on this thing and see how mighty I feel today. Okay, so hopefully my cheater bar here is long enough. Wow. Alright. Try this, move at your own risk also. This is crazy. Got that bar cut off so I can get it in between here. I broke the breaker bar. Crap. So now I got my breaker bar all busted up, and I tried to pick up another one today, but nobody had one, so I'm going to have to wait until Monday and finish up the job on Monday. In the meantime, I can move ahead a little bit further here yet. Okay, there's five bolts that hold this skid plate on, and looks like it's going to be in my best interest to take it off. You'll be glad you did it. Okay, got my socket on the hose clamp there, 5/16. Plenty loose. Got my drain pan under there. Trying to loosen it up a little bit with my screwdriver. This isn't a very sharp one, so I'm not too worried about digging into the hose too much. So I'm going to go from underneath now and pull it down. There she comes. So next I'm going to take off this idler pulley where your water pump normally would be. And there's an electrical connector down here. Just push that tab in with I'm using channel locks and wiggle it loose. So yeah, there it is. So idler pulley has one bolt there, one nut right there, and on this side there's a bolt down there, nut there, and then another bolt just underneath this idler pulley here. And if you got to replace your idler pulley, you might as well take it off. It's a good time to check them all. And those bolts are all 15 millimeter. And I'm getting lazy, so I'm going to use my air ratchet with a 15 mil socket. So the bolts are all loose. And once again, get that wire out of my way. There we go. Should just be able to wiggle it off now. There she be. Oh, we're getting there. I just wish that balancer would have came off. Would have been nice. I'm going to loosen this clamp right here first. Okay, I got that clamp off of there. Kind of mangled it to get it off. It was pretty stubborn. So now you need to take those two bolts out there. They're 12 millimeter. And then this hose has an O-ring in there and it should just pull itself down. Okay, the one closest to the driver's side there, that one was being a little bit stubborn. So what I ended up with was a swivel extension there, another extension, an adapter, and then another extension, and I'm on my 1/2-inch drive ratchet, and I finally got it loose. I was afraid to pull on it too hard down there because you never know if the wrench is going to go through the rad, so we'll just do it the safe way. And this one came out nice. This should just wiggle out from the top here. Hopefully I can get it out before I have to take that hose off. No, I think the hose is going to have to come off first. And then I can turn that and get it out. Okay, I just pushed that off of there with a screwdriver. And hopefully I can turn it now. Get this out. Stubborn. And there we are. There's the O-ring right there. Now we wait until we get the breaker bar. So today is day 2, December 14th, and we have 14 degrees and it's raining. So this is what happened to my 1/2-inch breaker bar. So I had a new tool delivered today. Thank you, John at Clausen Auto Parts. So my nice 3/4 inch breaker bar, it's not quite as long. It's going to be long in a minute. Like pushing on it this time. Oh, I think we got something. Loose. Alright, that did it. No, that just went in the antifreeze. Big washer. So there's the beast right there. Crazy. And they tell me that this just pulls right off. And look at that. I better get both hands because that thing looks awful heavy. So to remove your pump, they're all 12 millimeter. There's one right there, and right back behind where the balancer was, there's a stud right there. That's the reason you had to take the balancer off, just because of that one bolt. And then there's one right here just underneath this fin. And these three you get from this side, and then there's two other ones that you have to get from the back side. So my general rule is I try to get the most difficult bolt or nut off first. So I got my 12 millimeter ratcheting wrench. I got the two nuts off the back, and I'll show you from underneath. And the bolt that I'm putting the spray on, that's the top one. And it's attached to that black tube back in behind there. On the bottom of that black tube is another nut, and can't really get at it through here anywhere, so I'm going to try and get it from the bottom. I'm going to be brave. Try it. So I'm underneath, and this is the front part of the oil pan where that bolt is, right there. So another specialty item that you might need is a 12 millimeter deep socket. That's the only way you can get this out. I don't even think you'd be able to get a wrench in there. Oops, watch the rad. There should be. Okay, this top one is a shorter one, the one over here is longer. Okay, I've got my drain pan underneath there again because I do believe this is going to drip. And you want to try and pull it straight out. There she be. So I loosened these bolts up already. There's three. They're also a 12 millimeter. Should just pop right out of there. Yep. O-ring seal here, O-ring seal here. And the inside still looks really good. So just make sure you clean up around here. Make sure it's not corroded. Clean this up a little bit. And then maybe where the hose goes, clean that up a little bit. And however picky you want to get, clean her up. Something that I found works really well for cleaning up gaskets and that. And this is the paper that you use for sanding drywall. As long as you take it easy with this stuff and don't go crazy. And it usually leaves a pretty good finish, so I got all this done already. Time for the new one. Got a little diagram there, some instructions. I'll have to get my old man glasses out to be able to see this. So here's my instructions. This is just too funny. They've given me instructions for a belt driven pump. I think that about says it right there. So these two O-rings, the large ones, are two different sizes, so I still have the O-rings on the old one. And just going to lay them out. That's on the water side, and this is on the oil side. Oil side has a smaller one. I don't like to put any O-rings in without giving them a little bit of some oil. So the O-ring doesn't fit on here, but it fits in here. Set it down in there, and then when you tighten it, it'll pull itself tight. Bingo! And they gave me 3 new bolts. Now these 3 bolts, they need to be torqued to 15 pounds, which I'll be doing tomorrow. I'm done for today. almost done. There we go. So I got my small torque wrench. This one's in inch pounds, and these are supposed to be torqued to 15 foot-pounds, which is 180 inch-pounds. So that's what I did. These are torqued. And for myself, I used a little bit of some engine assembly lube. You could use probably any kind of oil or whatever, but I just greased up the gear there a little bit. I can't see that thing starting up dry like that. I haven't seen anybody else do that, but to me that just makes sense. Don't let it start up dry. You could probably just use some engine oil or something, as long as you don't make a big mess of things. And on this O-ring, I used a little bit of engine oil. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see down here, but where the O-ring meets here, I cleaned that all up, and right here on this tube where the gasket goes on, I cleaned that up. And over here on the pump side, I just put a little bit of some silicone just around here to hold that little gasket in place, and put that gasket in, and it should be all ready to drop in now. Trying to line up the bolts with the tube there first. And you might have to turn this gear a little bit just to get the gears to mesh together. If you have small enough fingers, you should be able to turn that pump from the inside. There we go. If the gear doesn't line up, and in this case I believe it did. Okay, so the shorter bolt went in this top hole here. Once you got it all lined up, make sure that everything is tucked away in there nice together. So the long bolt goes in from the bottom here, over on the driver's side. And this nut goes back in right here, behind the balancer, of course. And then I'll worry about the other two once I get these three tight. Now these bolts are all supposed to be torqued to 15 to 18 foot-pounds, or 180 to 216 inch-pounds. Use whichever you like. I'm using my inch-pound wrench. A little easier to get in there. And you just want to make sure that you tighten all three of these evenly. And then after that we can go to the other two on that tube. So you pretty much know where those two nuts go on the back side, and I'm going to go ahead and put those in. So what I'm doing now is I just got a scraper, and I'm just going to clean that groove where the O-ring goes in. I'm going to make sure that's all cleaned up nice. Okay, so this is all clean. I've got my O-ring sitting in there. I wiped up the hole where the top part goes into. I've got the bottom all cleaned up nice. This is the O-ring that came off of it, and it looked like it was very loose. And unfortunately this water pump didn't come with a O-ring for the top. It came with that bottom one, but not this one. So what I found was another O-ring about the same thickness as that one, but just a little bit smaller in diameter. And I put a little bit of oil on this O-ring. I understand it can be quite a nasty thing to put on. So that makes me feel a lot better. This O-ring is sitting a lot tighter on there. Hopefully it won't slip off then. And another thing that I've done is this hose, I pushed it all the way up to the end just to make it a little bit easier to fit into this hose right here. Alright, wish me luck. This has got to all get wiggled into place here, and hopefully it's all going to go well. Gonna move this O-ring out of the way here for a second until I can figure out how this is fit in there. There we go. Slipped into place there now. And I'm just gonna get my O-ring back in place. And the 2 bolts back in. Put this hose on and we should be all set. I've got these 2 bolts torqued down to 216 inch-pounds, and now I'm going to slide this hose back on. See how that worked out? Slid it all the way up to here, and now all I got to do is slide it back onto that one and tighten up that clamp, and should be all set. I just used my channel lock pliers to slide this over. I've got my clamps in place and nice and tight. And while I was down there before, I put the lower rad hose on. Just have to tighten it and do that from here. And then now the balancer can go back on. On the crankshaft here, there's a little pin right here. If you look at your balancer, it has that notch right there, and that has to go over top of that pin. There it is. And it just slides back on. And then the part that's the biggest pain right here. All because some engineer decided that they were going to put one of the water pump studs behind here. Nice, GM. Okay, so I turned my pry bar over onto the other side of that pin where I was getting it to hold on to. Okay, this is set for 74 foot-pounds, and you tighten it up to 74, then plus another 105 degrees. So I'll do that in a minute. Okay, so 105 degrees would be just over a quarter turn. Okay, I'm gonna give it a big oomph here. Ooh. I guess that was about an 1/8 of a turn so far. So if I can get another 1/8 of a turn out of this, I should have it. And that's it right there. Just going to slide that wire back out of the way. It's pulley time. There we go. So these here are 14mm bolts, and tighten them all up evenly and then torque them to 34 foot-pounds. And be a good idea to check all your pulleys right now, all your idler pulleys and everything. Just make sure that you don't have anything that's ready to seize up. Mine are all good. I've recently replaced some of them, and now I just want to make sure that I get some of the crap out of some of the pulleys. There's a bunch of junk that's fallen down into where the belt goes, so I'm going to blow that off right now. One thing that I didn't point out yet was this plug has to go back in after you get the idler pulley back on here again. And it's in. I've already installed the serpentine belt. I've got a video on that, and I'll leave a link right there for you. Once you get the belt on, you'll be all set to be able to put the fan back in. There you go. Once you get it started, it's a breeze. Alright, now we're going to tighten it up the same way we took it off. So I don't know if you can see my little mark that I made down here. That's just a little reference for me. This way I can see if I'm actually tightening it. Okay, so I've got my extended chisel and just the reverse of the way that we took it off. Hasn't really moved much yet, but I think it is now. Oh yeah, it moved that time. Okay, I believe that should do it. So if you look at the mark that I've got there, you can see that it has moved just a little bit, and I think that's all it takes. It's not turning with now, so I believe it's tight, and it's trying to turn the pulley, so we're good. Just hook the wiring back up the way that it was. There, once you hear it click, you're in. There's two little clips down here at the bottom that hold it in place, and just put it off to the side like that for now. Okay, put your fan shroud back on. I guess this has to come out for now. There we go, I should have put that in after. Okay, there's a little tab down there, kind of sits on there, and the same on this side. You should be able to hook the little plastic piece in there. Okay, so there's 4 bolts that hold this in place. And the first 2 just go on with this cover. And the other 2 just in this side. And then there's those 4 clips that have to go into those holes right down there on both sides. At the flywheel, make sure that you've got whatever tool that you've got stuck in there to keep the flywheel from turning. Make sure you take it out. So, batteries are both hooked up. I'm going to give it a start and fill it up with the antifreeze. So after test driving it and checking the fluid, everything looked good. And the only thing left to put on now is the skid plate and the inner fender. And if you've come this far, I'm sure you can put these on by yourself. Thanks for watching, and subscribe if you like, and make sure you hit the like button if you like the video. Thank you.